Donald Trump gave a few reasons today for why he greenlit the military operation in Venezuela, specifically citing an illegitimate election and drug trafficking. But he also wasn't shy about another potential reason he wanted to go in. Take a listen.
The oil business in Venezuela, oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, the oil infrastructure. Venezuela unilaterally seized and sold American oil. Oil industry, massive oil, Venezuelan oil. To rebuild the oil infrastructure, the oil companies. We're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. They stole our oil. Oil is very dangerous. We're in the oil business. We'll be selling oil. We'll be selling large amounts of oil. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world.
All right, joining us now is Michael Froman, president of the Council on Foreign Relations and former U.S. Trade Representative. It's great to have you with us, Michael. So that was just, a few sound bites, if you will, of the president saying very clearly what this, at least for him, was a factor in the decision making. It seems to be oil. He's openly saying oil was part of that decision making process. What do you make of that read, and what signal does that send to you about what happens next in Venezuela?
Well, it certainly was one of the key motivations. He talked about drugs, he talked about oil, he talked about dominance in the region. He talked about democracy sort of as a fourth, maybe a lagging issue somewhat. But oil is certainly one of the key motivations here. U.S. companies have been involved in Venezuela for a very long time. Chevron still operates there under a license from the Treasury Department. Exxon and ConocoPhillips had been there prior to 2007. So we have a long history there, and our refineries in the Gulf Coast are developed or are well suited for the heavy sour oil that comes out of Venezuela. The issue is that, as the president said, over the years, the Maduro regime and the Chavez regime before him have greatly mismanaged the oil infrastructure. And so it's now producing about 1/4 of what it used to produce. And it's going to need very significant investment from U.S. firms to increase that and get the oil flowing again. It does have tremendous reserves, some thought to be the highest reserves in the world. The question is whether the companies are in for that kind of investment and whether the Venezuelans will stand aside as the U.S. insists on taking that oil for other purposes, for reimbursing people who've lost their property, who've had their property expropriated, for payment for whatever the cost of the U.S. operation is, and ultimately, of course, for the Venezuelan people, as the president said.
We reached out to the major U.S. oil companies today, and all were non-committal on President Trump's idea to have them, come in and set up shop and get going. Although the Wall Street Journal is reporting that there are executives who are planning in the coming weeks, early part of this year, to take a trip there. But the other thing we're hearing from both journalists on the ground there, analysts of the region, is that very likely in this power vacuum, there will be violence of some kind. There is, of course, the military still in place in the country. And then there are gangs, warring factions, armed groups. It's a large country with about 30 million people in it. Is it even safe for U.S. interests, the military, business executives to be entering Venezuela in this period? If, as so many people have shared with us this evening, it seems the Trump administration barely has its day two plan.
Well, look, on one hand, oil companies are used to operating in very difficult environments, political and security environments. On the other hand, as you said, a lot of this goes to what does it mean for the day after plan, and what does it mean to run Venezuela? Decapitation does not mean democracy, and it doesn't mean reform. We saw that in Iraq. We saw that in Libya. It takes a lot of effort to change a regime. This went way beyond Maduro in terms of the corruption, and in terms of the criminality. It's going to take a lot more than just eliminating him to make Venezuela an attractive place for investment again. And I think a big open question is, how do you do that, as some of your previous speakers said, without significant boots on the ground, as we did have in Iraq? And so, this is now a major state building exercise, which is something the president had campaigned against, really. It's going to require significant resources if we're going to really succeed in turning it around. I'm not sure how you do it from afar and just relying on the vice president, who was, of course, chosen by Maduro himself.
I wanted to ask you, Michael, about China and Russia here, who have some stakes in Venezuela, both in the energy sector and politically. And now they come into a kind of a direct contact with the United States. There was a Chinese delegation just in Venezuela yesterday meeting with President Maduro. And now it seems this is going to be a point of possible friction between China, Russia, and the United States on one side. How do you see that playing out beyond just the implications of what this means for China vis-a-vis Taiwan or Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, Venezuela was very much a client state of Russia, and we've now attacked a client state of Russia. And they can't be too happy about that. They've got to be impressed by the incredible effectiveness of our military forces and of our intelligence. But they can't be too happy about that. And the question, as you said, is what does it give them license to take action in their own backyard? For China, as you said, their envoy had just met with Maduro for hours, literally hours before he was taken. And so they must think about the intelligence failures that they have on their side, and the fact that the U.S. was able to pull this off without China or anybody catching wind of it. They are, of course, the main purchasers of Venezuelan oil as well, and they have been making major investments and major inroads into Latin America more generally. Part of the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, or as the president called it, the Don-Roe Doctrine, is that we're not going to tolerate our adversaries establishing strong footholds in our backyard. And this is certainly a pushback against that.
Michael Froman, appreciate you. Thank you for joining tonight.